Hello and welcome to Walk Before You Run. I know it's not morning. I know many of you probably have already walked, and probably some of you have already finished running. But I wanted to come and share um, from the book of Esther, chapter 1, to be specific, and talk about don't get caught up. Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in um, in doing something foolish. Don't get caught up in listening to foolery. Don't get caught up in allowing situations, circumstances to make you act in a way that later on you'll regret. Okay. And so today I want to read, um, Esther 1 from the New Revised Standard Version. Good afternoon. It says, verse 1 says, this happened in the days of Ahasuerus, and the same Ahasuerus who ruled over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. In those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on his royal throne in the citadel of Susa, in the third year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his officials and ministers, the army of Persia and Media, and the nobles and governors of the provinces were present while he displayed the great wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and pomp of his majesty for many days, 180 days in all. Now that's a long time to be having a party or to be um, having feasts and celebrations. But when you have the moolah, I guess you can wine and dine as many people as you want for as long as you'd like. And that's what this king did. Now, some call him Xerxes, and others call him Ahasuerus. But either way, we're talking about this king of Persia. And verse 5 says, when these days were completed, the king gave for all the people present in the citadel of Susa, both great and small, a banquet lasting for 7 days. So he has this big to do uh, for all of his provinces, and he is just celebrating, having a party, feasting, festivals, you name it, they're doing it. And so he has that to show everybody just how powerful he was, how rich he was. So he was all pumped up. Then at the end, he had a banquet in the town of Susa, or in the city, the citadel of Susa, that lasted for 7 days. And it was in the court garden of the king's palace. Verse 6 says, there were white cotton curtains and blue hanging ties with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement, marble, pearl, mother of pearl, and colored stones. Drinks were served in golden goblets, goblets of different kinds, and the royal wine was lavished according to the bounty of the king. So, I mean, he is doing it up, trying to show everybody just how powerful of a man he was. It says in verse 8, drinking was by flagons without restraint. Everybody had drinks, as much as you want, open bar for everybody. And it says, for the king had given orders to all the officials of his palace to do as each one desires. Furthermore, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for the women in the palace of King Ahasuerus. On the seventh day, when the king was merry with wine, he commanded uh, Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, Carcass, and the 7 eunuchs who attended him told them to bring him Queen Vashti before the king, wearing the royal crown in order to show the people and the officials her beauty, for she was fair to behold. So she was the most beautiful woman in the city, and he wanted to show her off. He had been drinking now, mind you, for quite a long time. Remember, it said 180 days in all, plus the 7 days that he did his little local thing in the palace. So he's been drinking, he's been on a binge for a while. So you know that right about now, his mental capacity to make sound decisions has gone straight out the window. But he doesn't care. He doesn't care what anybody is saying. He's full of himself right about now. And let's take a look at what happens while he is full of himself. So we know that Queen Vashti, she is celebrating herself, having banquets with the women of the palace. And then he calls for his 7 eunuchs and tell them, go get Vashti and tell I said, come here. And tell her to put on her best, dress it up, come in. I want her to flaunt herself around in front of all my friends so they can see not only am I powerful, not only am I rich and wealthy, but I also have the most beautiful wife anybody could ask for. So I want you to go get her until I said, come here right now. Verse 12 says, but Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command conveyed by the eunuchs. At this, the king was enraged and his anger burned within him. So now you know he wasn't just angry, he was embarrassed. All of these people he had from everywhere sitting up in his palace, and he gives a command. He didn't say, go ask Queen Vashti if she feels like coming in here. No, he gave a command. He said, he didn't just send one person either. He sent the 7 eunuchs that were attending to him. He told those 7 guys, go and tell Vashti, I said, come here right now. And she said, no, not now. And so he's angry, he's embarrassed. And instead of him taking a moment to think about, am I making some wise choices right now? I know I'm probably totally out of my mind with booze. So am I really making the right decisions? He didn't think that. He didn't stop. He was just full of himself. Verse 13 said, then the king consulted the sages who knew the laws, for this was the king's procedure toward all who were versed in law and customs. And those next to him were Karshina, Shethar, Admantha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsina, Memucan, the 7 officials of Persia and Media who had access to the king and sat first in the kingdom. According to the law, what is it to be done to Queen Vashti because she has not performed the commandment of the king conveyed by the eunuchs? Then Memucan said Then Memucan said in the presence of the king and the officials. Now he's not just talking to the king in private. Everybody's listening. Not only has Queen Vashti done wrong to the king, but also to all the officials and all the people who are in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. Sorry, you guys. For this deed of the queen will be made known to all women, causing them to look with contempt on their own husbands, since they will say, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, and she did not come. This very day, the noble ladies of Persia and Media, who have heard of the queen's behavior, will rebel against the king's officials, and there will be no end to contempt and wrath. Now, this was one person who did one thing, and now they are blowing it up. They're blowing it all out of proportion. Or maybe not. But, They're saying, oh, king, you let her get away with this and everybody's going to be doing it. But everybody couldn't do everything the queen could do. And so why would everybody else be doing it because the queen did it? But they are telling him, you let her get away with it, and we're going to have problems on our hands because our wives are looking at your wife and they say, if the queen can do it, then we can do it. But that was not the case, but they made it the case. 17 says, for this deed of the queen will be made known to all women, causing them to look with contempt on their husbands, since they will say, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, and she did not come. This very day, the noble ladies of Persia and Media who have heard of the queen's behavior will rebel against the king's officials, and there will be no end to the contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, let a royal order go out from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it may not be altered, that Vashti is never again to come before King Ahasuerus. And let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. So when the decree made by the king is proclaimed throughout all his kingdom, vast as it is, all women will give honor to their husbands, high and low alike. This advice pleased the king and the officials, and the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent letters to all the royal provinces, to every province in its own script, and to every people in its own language, declaring that every man should be master in his own house. Okay, now, thank you. Now, I know that the word has, even before this, talked about the husband being the head of the house and being Lord of his house. But I can imagine that in the mindset that these men were in, they weren't just talking about the husband being the head and the woman following. No, they were talking about getting the authority from the king to take their thumb and press it down on their wives. And so they were mad at what Vashti did. And so they were going to take it out on their wives. And King is so full of his happy juice that he is listening and just doing what they tell him to do, not taking time to think about it himself. But I'm going to give you a little heads up. When the king banishes Vashti from coming in his presence, that means that right about now, who's going to be coming? Yeah, he probably has quite a few women in his harem, but Vashti was the best of the best. So you just said she can't come anymore. So now what are you going to do? I want you to read for yourself chapter 2 of Esther and find out just in the very first few verses that the king had to think about this because he really hadn't thought about it before he declared and decreed what needed to be and take place. So sometimes we need to be careful getting caught up in the moment, getting caught up in somebody trying to fill your head with stuff, what you ought to do. Now, see, what you ought to do, what you should do, sometimes we need to take a moment, take a step back and think about, am I in the right frame of mind to be making some decisions that's going to affect the rest of my life? We need to think about it. When you get all angry, all hot and bothered, you ticked off, somebody did something, and you're going to make some life altering decisions based on that one action. Don't get caught up. Sometimes we need to humble ourselves, take a step back, look at the whole situation and ask ourselves, did I add to this problem? Did I help in creating this situation? And if I did, then I need to take ownership of what I've done, and I need to do something about my part. So humility can go a long ways. That this king didn't have. And so I'll see you next time. Remember to always walk before you run. And if you happen to run before you get a chance to walk, just remember you need to walk through the Word of God. I don't care what time of day it is. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. And always, always remember that we are all blessed so that we can be a blessing to someone else.